The last one we have is silence. And when I say last, there are many more in the book. I remember the number, but I'm guessing at least 20. So silence. Anybody ever heard these words? Shut up. Probably in a different tone, often. But maybe that's not such a bad idea at times, to go into something where we could listen to the silence and maybe the sound of silence. Or what does the silence tell us that's different from words? So perhaps we're given an opportunity to listen to something other than what we don't want to hear. And that's okay. I think little beings, here I am going again to our little beings when we were little beings. They often do silence like this. You remember that? Some of you do. Like, well, what is that? It's like, I'm listening to something else. Or we start humming. It's like, okay, I'm making another kind of sound. I'm listening to that. And then later we turn it in, la 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 la. Like, I'm going to make some other sound that I'm listening to than what you're telling me. But let's just consider to know how to do that silence is valuable as a way to retune to higher consciousness, to our wisdom, to our best choices. And it can also be a way of realizing I need my rest such that I turn off my transmitting and come into receptivity. So silence would be a way to come into your rest. So maybe I'll just suggest some things that if you can reduce the outer sounds when you need your rest. Some of you already know this, like, of course, I know this. I put in earplugs, I put in mufflers, I get 2 feet of concrete padded rooms. And there's a reason these things work. So if you have that opportunity to reduce noise, I'm just going to call it noise or static, take advantage of it and to understand that what we're really talking about is concentrating, focusing on the silence. Anybody that is brilliant, as in a genius at something, knows how to do this. Because it's taking concentration in the way of a focus and delivering it entirely to what that is, and everything else in its own way has no input. So we're dwelling on exactly what I'm going to put it this way, need to focus upon, need to bring in our awareness into a particular frequency. Or it could include what we see, that we're precisely focused. In my life, I heard hit the target or watch the ball. I'm thinking about like how many things did I do in my life that involved a ball that I was watching? It's like a lot. And why was that so interesting, called play? Because there's something about like coming into relation to what that is and being able to do it in a way that I could take the ball and put it where I wanted it to go, even if that wasn't someone else was wanting the ball to go somewhere else, and I said, no, it's not going to go here, it's going to go there. Having that ability to come into that silence and focus in a very particular way. Did you catch that? And see, because that went out. It started being something that I couldn't contain it because it was larger than my containment. And I think that's one of the abilities that we have, is to transmit silence, to transmit stillness, to transmit the pause, and that we can actually breathe for people. You just demonstrated that. Did you catch that? Because I heard you. You went. So, like, how would that be? Like, how could I transmit such that if there's pressure, worry, fear, that the body kinesthetically forms around, so that the muscles and the nerves would emulate worry, fear, doubt, then I could transmit something else. Go, is that a violation? It's like, I don't do it as a violation. And then I want you to consider that there are energy fields that are not violating of anyone or anything. We call that spirit. So that's just a way like, oh, okay, I think I might have experienced that, where something comes in the room and we all relax. Or have you ever been in a situation where laughter takes over and nobody can figure out where it came from, how to get in here? So we're now laughing, and a moment ago we were really serious or aggressive. And let's just consider that's what we're doing in these resting points, is we're learning how to attune to higher states that are also higher consciousness, that are higher abilities that we all carry. And that if we don't frequent in these higher states, we frequent in lower states called exhaustion, conflict, irritation, aggression, the list goes on. So there are expansive states that are going to greater and greater states, higher and higher awareness. It's being done. I'm like an instrument at this moment, and it's playing into the room. But let's say I'm utilizing those of you who also brought it into the room with yourself, and you're willing to share like we are a symphony. And perhaps you have a pure way of relating to the higher states than I do. So give yourself that opportunity, that you don't limit yourself by something you perceive outwardly that would in some way become a limitation that's not necessary. And then my proof is in the states I mentioned earlier. I refer to as the Christ, as the traveler, as God. That just calling out those terms can often be the intention to relate, to frequent. And so that I could say, peace be with you. And you might say, well, peace be with you. Or I think our ancestors knew a lot about this. It wasn't necessarily popular, but let's just consider that it was in the field. It's been here all along, how to relate in these qualities that are higher consciousness.